Welcome to the Queens of Quality podcast, where we talk about some of the basic and not so basic impacts of compliance and quality within the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. Your host, Micheline Bradley, has insight and stories from over 25 years in the industry, and each week she will meet you here to bust common misconceptions and myths, update you on industry news and trends, share great discussions with knowledgeable guests, and solutions to challenges that will make your life in bioscience not just easier, but more gratifying. All of this is done with a balance of levity and irreverence that is much needed for work that is inherently serious and has very real repercussions on patients' health and safety. The Queens of Quality can be found for free wherever you catch podcasts. You can check the show notes for our website, medisconsultingservices.com, and for more info. Now, please sit back and hold on to your hat. It's your favorite Queen of Quality, Micheline Bradley.
Hi, and welcome back to the Queens of Quality. I am your host, Micheline Bradley. I know that we started this out with it being the Micheline and Jen show, and Jen has taken a job in-house, and we wish her the absolute best in those endeavors. And so we're changing up the format, and it's going to be me interviewing other people within the industry. And I am starting out with Dr. Lucia Mokrace, who is one of my favorites of all time. And Lucia and I have known each other for over 5 years now.
Oh God, I think it's more like 10. We're old, remember?
Okay. I don't want to think about it like that. You're right. It is more like 10. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lucia and I have known each other for like 10 years now, and we met when I was on a panel discussion at Stanford University, and Lucia was in attendance, and we hit it off right from the beginning. And I'm going to let Lucia tell you a little bit more about herself and what she is doing and how she has pivoted in this industry.
Yeah, no, I remember when we met, Micheline, you were on the panel and I was in the audience, and it was like it was you and then a bunch of, I don't want to be too derogatory towards the other panelists, but it was a lot of corporate speak and
yes,
chest beating and very kind of and no offense to all of my wonderful white male friends, but like a lot of white male energy in the room. And it was like our eyes locked, and it was like we basically rolled them at each other at the same time, and it was like, I'm going to talk to her after this thing. And so,
our eyes locked across the room. Oh my God, what are we doing in this?
Across the room. And then after that, it was like, I'm going to try to like make Micheline like laugh spontaneously as little as possible, because to the rest of the audience, it's going to seem random that she keeps breaking into laughter just at inappropriate moments. And so, but yeah, that was the story. And I think at that point I was on the very beginning of my consulting journey. Since we were kind of talking before the podcast about kind of what got me into this and why I would choose this insanity. So I was the chief medical officer of an early stage biotech company. And after that company went through a merger, I was free to do whatever. And I thought that I would just consult as a way to feed myself until the next kind of, C-level, VP level opportunity came along with another startup, and discovered that I absolutely adored consulting because I have, number one, very much a night owl circadian rhythm. And so bringing me into a workplace at 8:30 or 9 in the morning is just not a good use of anybody's time. And also I really like to break up my day, so I'm kind of actually a biphasic sleeper. So like I sleep a bit at night, but I also have like a kind of a long nap in the afternoon. And so I still get in the same amount of work as everybody else does. But for me to bill a client for hours, I want those hours to be me at my most productive, my most in the zone, my most creative, my most best self, right? And so if you're going to stick me in front of a computer, and honestly, anybody in front of a computer for 8 hours or in front of whatever they're doing, the human brain just doesn't work that way. It doesn't, it's lots of cognitive studies, you just can't be productive for that duration of time. And then the alternative is that you're looking at paying people for times that they're kind of only intermittently productive. So I really like that kind of flexibility in the schedule. Also, commuting is bullshit, and I did not want to do that. It exhausts me. It's bad for the earth. It puts mileage on my car. It's just silly. I'm happy to go on site, here and there, or, for my current work to kind of get to know the team initially. But then I find, that I'm very effective at engaging people just by Zoom. And so COVID was like this wonderful revelation, because I'd already had a paid Zoom account since 2017. And all of a sudden everybody was online. And I'm like, yes, this is how it works. I'm probably the only one who loved COVID, but like that was that aspect of COVID anyway. And I just really liked the dynamic shift of, I think that even if the work that you're doing is the same, whether you are an FTE or whether you are a paid consultant or contract worker, the dynamic is such that I feel like just mentally, I have a little bit more of objective distance between me and the client. It's not that I'm not invested in the project or invested in the product, but I can maintain some objectivity and distance where I don't get as much emotionally wrapped up in like the politics and the dynamics and, some of the interpersonal challenges that can happen in a workplace when you're kind of like, if these people don't listen to me, it's going to reflect poorly on my career because I'm making this recommendation. They're not doing it, but the outcome of that is going to make it look like it was my decision. And like, I think when you're a consultant, it's people also get that you're not the one at the end of the day. It's not your decision, it's the company's decision, and you're there to recommend it, to advise, but it's not going to necessarily reflect on you're not dependent on them for your career trajectory as much. I mean, like now, yeah, you're still very dependent on them in terms of projects need to go well, because as a consultant, your reputation is your currency, right? And your integrity is your currency. But those were kind of all the things that brought me in. I just realized that I wanted to stay independent and go from there. And I started off in kind of clinical quality project management stuff that I'd been doing all along, medical affairs, and got to a point in my career where I felt that I had more to offer, and I was not leveraging what makes me unique and different in the industry. So like for medical writing, I'm a great medical writer. I am a great clinical scientist. I am great at clinical operations. There are also many people who are great at those things, right? And it didn't necessarily, although I'm definitely, if I do toot my own horn, like at the top of the curve there, you don't even always need somebody at the top of the curve to do those things. Sometimes like companies, what they value is, done is, having it checked off the list is more important than the quality. And it got me thinking, what do I do that's unique? And what I discovered is that I see patterns that other people don't see. I make connections that other people don't see. I see gaps that other people don't see. I'm able to engage stakeholders of all types, difficult people, not so difficult people, senior people, not people, senior people, in a way that's unusual. And it took me a long time in my career, a long time, to get that and to appreciate that. And also some business coaching, and you and I know the same business coach. I'm going to give Lynn White a huge shout out here. She's amazing. You all should hire her. Go Lynn. And she really helped me kind of see where I add value in a way that, like, there is no other Lucia Mokris, like there is no other Lucia out there. And so my journey in consulting has kind of led to pivoting more to being a problem solver and a business fixer, in ways that, just nobody else does. But it took this long. I'm going to be 50 in a couple years, and it took that long in my career to figure all that out, so yeah, so that's my path.
Excellent. And so I have a couple of questions, because this is an area that we have really bonded over. Is, what do you find most difficult in, your search for clients, and what was your ideal client before you changed paths to here, to where you're going in to look at how, and we also have to give a plug for your upcoming webinar.
Yeah, the problem solving. Yeah, I think before, my ideal client was not necessarily the highest level of decision making, capacity within the organization, depending on the size of the organization. They were generally kind of like a, manager or director who had budget to spend, who needed a specific project or task done. Like, we need this clinical evaluation project written, or product report written, or, we need this regulatory submission to be put in. And I am now, I think with the business fixing and the problem solving, the ideal client is, I think a little bit more specific to company stage, whereas before it was sort of like any company stage might be able to use that kind of service, whether it's a big or small company. Right now, I think, my focus is really on kind of the small to mid-sized companies that are in big growth phases. So it's like, we just got a huge injection of funding and we hired 100 more people, which seems like it should solve a problem, because before we were understaffed and now we have all these people. And yet things that used to work are no longer working anymore. Or, we just had, we went through merger and acquisition, and like 90% of it went well, but now there's just a few sticky things where it's like processes and procedures that used to be fine and have no reason in our mind not to work fine just because we merged with another company, are now no longer working. And so I think and that's going to tend to be kind of these small to mid-sized companies that are at these big growth or inflection points where there's some big activity that's caused some kind of disruption for them. And generally leaders then, so the ideal client on a personal level is that leader who is overwhelmed by the decisions that they need to make, and doesn't know where to begin, or maybe they do know where to begin, but they have, their day is 8 hours of meetings and then a 200 email inbox after that. And they're like, I just need to clone myself and have somebody deal with this. And, that's where I can kind of step in and say, look, I'm objective. I can help you make decisions. I can also just execute. I can work with you to figure out what you need. Whereas before, the consulting was more person needs specific task done, I do the task. So that's sort of the pivot there, is kind of getting more to the emotional side of it, where dealing with and helping with people who are frustrated, overwhelmed, confused, and just kind of at their wits' end, and they're just like, this is costing me money. I need to make it go away. I need to figure out how to manage it.
Yep. And that's really, so my kind of how the rebirth of Queens of Quality started, or the reboot, was because I had a conversation with a couple of the groups meaning, other consultants. And we were talking about some areas that we can really combine forces to make better service offerings. And one of the things that was said was, we don't need to do the same thing over and over again. And, like right now, there's such a big push for AI, right? I'm going to use that as an example. And I think that AI is fantastic. And I think there's a great deal that can be done with it, provided we do it responsibly. And I also think that AI is not the newest tool in the box, but I think it's the shiniest right now. And there are a lot of other issues that we've also been facing that have actually already been solved, and we don't need to solve them again. But we keep looking at the framework with the same approaches that we've looked at them historically. And so we're not coming up with, like, the cutting edge isn't that cutting, and it's not even on the edge, so it's like we need to rethink how we're doing this, and we can really be more effective and more fluid and more agile as we move through, if we are willing to take some of these chances. And I'm working with some clients right now who are in an mergers and acquisitions situation, and it's very challenging working with the people who are coming from the existing, from the company that was acquired into the acquiring organization, and they're starting out like basically from scratch. But there's a lot of communication issues that were inherited. There are a lot of, so I work a lot with rescue pets. So I kind of view it a little bit as like, okay, this is like working with pet rescues and, the rescued pets themselves. And we can't approach it in this way. We need to approach it in this other way, because we need to be watching out for what the pets are going to react best to, not just what, like, I'm going to react best to. It's not about me, it's about them. So, and making sure, because that's also kind of how I got to the quality piece, was I found that working in-house, people don't necessarily listen. They want you to stay in your lane and only do your job and not try to think about how to problem solve external to anything. And there's all the politic that's involved and the not listening part. And so how do we move past all of that to get to a point where I can offer these options for you? We can work together on putting these options into place. And then I get to move on, because I don't want to be in-house anymore. I like doing the consulting. I like being able to say, here's what I see. Here's where it fits into what you need as a quality organization. And let's move forward with that.
Yeah, no, and I think you brought up something really important there, which is the rut that people tend to get into. And, especially I think in life sciences, where people, are very dedicated to very specific lanes, and, whether it's by job title, role function, stage of asset development, what kind of asset is it? Is it pharma? Is it device? Is it diagnostic? The therapeutic indication. I mean, like, it gets very, very, very specific, and people get very kind of anchored in like the way things are done. And, I think it's the most important thing to me, I think, in problem solving is coming in with that sort of beginner mindset, not a beginner at problem solving, but like I'm a beginner to your company. I'm a beginner to your processes. I'm going to ask all the quote unquote dumb questions that somebody inside your company would be afraid to ask because they don't want to look stupid, or they feel like they should know the answer, or, like, why did we do it this way? Or like, how did, and you ask that question, it's like, well, it's the way we've always done it. Well, maybe the way you were doing it made sense when your company was founded, but it is no longer serving you. So it wasn't a wrong decision. And that's, I think, one of the most unproductive things that people do is blame, right? Well, this is the fault of my predecessors. It's not on me. This is the fault of somebody else for setting it up that way. And it's like, look, it might have been a great decision at the time. It might have worked perfectly, and it just doesn't work that way anymore. But I think the challenge, and this circles back to a piece of your question that I didn't really address before when you asked, like, what's your biggest kind of challenge of finding, engagements and finding consultants, is that when you have people who are in that mindset of looking for very specific experience and very specific kind of track records, it is very hard to find clients with that kind of generalist when I have a generalist background, it can be hard to sell that to clients who don't see that vision of like, oh, that's actually an advantage. Right. And so, like, because they're like, well, my problem is with this, what they think their problem is with X area. So I'm going to find an expert who's only done X their entire life.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, well, your problem definition is one of the big things, right? It's like, that might not be your problem at all. That might be a symptom. And what I've found in my work is, like, a lot of times what people think the problem is only a symptom of kind of the greater illness within the company, right? So it's kind of like, when we think, coming from a veterinary background, I think of things in terms of like, there's like the disease, and then there's symptoms of the disease. The symptom isn't the disease. The symptom is just a symptom, right? And so I think it's, until you build and have had time in your career to build a very long, track record and client list where you're 100% referral based. One of the challenges of consulting, and especially like me, where I am making a pivot, it's not that I haven't been fixing and problem solving all along as a byproduct of my work, but I'm not known for it yet. The people who know me for it, but building that awareness and building, people can't hire me if they don't know I exist. And
Yes.
So building that awareness, and building an awareness also of how that kind of approach to problem solving, and like you said, that sort of, finding those clients who are aware of the rut that they're in, and they're like, I am in a rut. I need to seek outside support to help me get out of this rut. It's kind of like the same thing, reason we go to therapy, right? It's like, I don't know what my thinking errors are. All I know is that the way I'm doing things in my life is not working for me right now. And I need somebody outside to kind of interrogate that and help me reframe. And it might be, again, the things that you're doing might have been very adaptive earlier in your life, right? But they're no longer adaptive. And so it's just kind of like, I think you and I are kind of like therapists for these businesses, just as much as we are service providers, right? Because it's an opportunity to help people reframe and get out of that rut, of like, this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way we're assuming we need to do it. I'm even looking forward to getting out of life science industry completely with clients in, I would love to have a client in, aerospace, or, environmental engineering, or, a nonprofit, places where it's like, what I do doesn't have anything, I don't need to have any kind of technical or specialized knowledge. As a matter of fact, it's probably better that I don't, to really be able to help the people most effectively.
That's awesome. I think that would be really cool, but I really like being in life sciences industry.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be in-house.
Yeah.
But I will be coming to your webinar.
Yeah. Oh, yay. So yeah, that's all right. My little pitch, got an upcoming problem solving webinar. So I encourage people listening to this podcast to sign up. You can find, do we have a way to drop links or connect people with links? What's the best people to connect? Okay. So you guys can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Lucia Mokris. I'm literally the only Lucia Mokris on the planet. So I'm very easy to find, for better or for worse. And we're basically just going to go through like how, identifying problem scoping, being able to predict problems. But to me, more importantly, establishing mindset around problem solving and understanding the barriers to problem solving and why companies and people get stuck, and how to get unstuck. And so, and what's the best way to build cultures that are problem solving cultures within your business rather than kind of blaming cultures or head in the sand cultures. And so that should be a great webinar. 100% of the proceeds are going to go to BioLink Depot, which takes discarded science equipment. A lot of times it's just completely unused, like boxes of pipette tips and even up to like -80 freezers and centrifuges from life science companies that don't need them anymore, or ordered the wrong thing and can't return it, or they're moving labs, or they're shutting down. And we take it and we donate it to K-12 schools here up in the Bay Area, most of which are Title I schools, so schools in underserved communities. And that way we keep things out of landfills and support STEM education for the students that need it. And now more than ever, I think we really need to support our STEM environment. So it's a great cause. Encourage you guys to all sign up. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And please, if you have any questions, please reach out to us at hello@metisconsultingservices.com. And we can also put you directly in contact with Lucia.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Queens of Quality podcast, and a special thank you to our incredible guest. By the way, we love hearing from you, our listeners. Please let us know what you think, or if you have any questions or comments, or if you would like to be a guest on the Queens of Quality podcast, you can email us at hello@metisconsultingservices.com, or check the show notes for more ways to contact us. I promise we read every email and take your thoughts into consideration for future episodes. And as always, if you could, take a few moments to rate or review us on your favorite streaming service. It makes a huge difference in getting the word out. Remember, folks, quality means patient safety first, and we are the Queens of Quality.